So here's a wild thought. Can you actually make someone fall in love with you? Well, back in 1996, a book by a communications expert named Leil Lowndes made a pretty bold claim. Yes, you absolutely can. It argued that for, forever, we've treated love like it's some kind of magic, but that science was finally cracking the code. Okay, so let's dive in and see what that code actually looks like.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Is love this enchanted, totally unpredictable force of nature? Or, as this book suggests, is it actually a series of predictable, maybe even controllable reactions? We're about to go from romance to pure mechanics.
This quote, this is the whole premise in a nutshell. Lowndes is basically saying love isn't some big, unexplainable mystery. Nope, it's a process. It's like a cocktail of different scientific ingredients that, if you mix them just right, can get you the result you want. It's a bold idea, for sure, and maybe even a little unsettling for some of us.
All right, so to even start building this case, the book has to begin by tearing down a few things we all think we know about romance.
Okay, let's take the classic hard-to-get myth. What's so fascinating here is the massive gap between what people say they want and what they actually go for. So researchers asked men, hey, do you prefer a woman who's hard to get? And they all said, yeah, of course. She's more desirable. But when they put it to the test in a real computer dating study, and some women were told to hesitate and others were told to just accept a date enthusiastically, guess which ones the men went for? Yep, overwhelmingly the enthusiastic ones. Here's another one that might surprise you. You know that romantic idea of the woman falling head over heels first? Well, according to the studies in this book, it's actually men. In one study, they found that before the fourth date even happened, 20% of men said that they were already in love. Compare that to just 15% of women. And get this, they also tend to suffer more after a breakup. Of course, long before anyone even says a single word, a whole conversation has already happened. This next part is all about those crucial nonverbal signals, the stuff that decides whether attraction even has a chance to get off the ground. Okay, so here's your first practical technique. It's called sticky eyes. The author tells this great story about a carpenter she was just incredibly attracted to. She couldn't figure out why, until she realized he held her eye contact for just an extra beat after she stopped talking. Now, it wasn't because he was interested. Turns out he was just a little slow on the uptake, but wow, the effect was powerful. It gives you this feeling of intense focus and intimacy. And this isn't just some cute metaphor, by the way. A researcher, Dr. Timothy Perper, literally spent thousands of hours in singles bars just watching, and he found that successful hookups almost always followed this exact 5-step physical sequence. He called it the dance of intimacy. And if either person skipped a step or broke the sequence, poof, the connection just fizzled out. It's like a subconscious choreography of attraction. So who's leading this dance? Well, according to another researcher, Monica Moore, it's usually the women. They initiate about 2/3 of all encounters. And you can forget all those complicated strategies. The data shows that a simple, broad smile is by far the most successful opening move. Okay, now we're getting into what is probably the most controversial part of the book, this idea that relationships are, at their very core, a transaction. It doesn't sound very romantic, I know, but the book argues it's very, very real. It's called the equity theory of love. The idea is that we all have a kind of market value based on our assets, and we're subconsciously looking for a partner with a comparable value. It suggests we're all, on some level, asking, what's in it for me? And a relationship works best when both people feel like they're getting a fair deal. To really drive this home, the book brings up this pretty stark study from the 1930s. Researchers went and rated a bunch of 5th-grade girls on their looks. Then, decades later, a sociologist tracked them all down. And what they found was that the girls who were rated as prettier had married wealthier, more powerful men. It's a pretty bracing example of how assets can get traded on in the relationship market. So what are these assets? Well, it's not just about looks and money. According to the theory, it's the whole package. It includes things like your status, your intelligence, your personality, your charm, your humor, and even your inner nature, like your kindness and honesty. Everybody is bringing a whole portfolio of assets to the bargaining table. So, if all that other stuff is the mechanics, what's the key that actually turns the engine? The book argues it's something called the love map, and that figuring this out is the final and most important piece of the entire puzzle. So, what is a love map? Well, it's basically your personal, subconscious blueprint for your perfect partner. The theory goes that it gets imprinted on us during this critical window in childhood, kind of like how baby ducks will imprint on the first moving thing they see and just follow it for life. Highly emotional events from when we're young create the very specific triggers that turn us on as adults. And to see this in action, the book tells a story of this guy named Roger. He was about to marry a woman who was, on paper, absolutely perfect, but the passion was just dying. Turns out he had this secret desire for her to scream obscenities at him during sex, which, was something she would never, ever do.
So where on earth did this very specific, kind of bizarre desire come from? Well, Roger traced it all the way back to a single moment when he was a little boy. He saw a prostitute yell that exact phrase at his father, and his father's powerful, shocked reaction just seared those words into his young mind, linking them forever with power and forbidden excitement. And just like that, a single random event created his love map.
And that's really the crucial point of all of this. Making someone fall in love isn't about using some one-size-fits-all set of tricks. It's about becoming a detective. It's about discovering the unique, often quirky, and deeply personal blueprint that makes a specific person tick, and then finding the key that fits their specific lock. And that kind of leaves us with one final, lingering thought. After looking at all these techniques, the body language, the market value, the love maps, you have to ask, even if love can be understood and engineered, does that mean it should be? What do we gain, and what might we lose when we turn magic into a formula?